Hello, and welcome to Horror Rewind. This is Kelly Florence.
And this is Nate Payne.
And this week we're talking about Re-Animator.
Yes.
Now, you told me a fun fact last year. Re-Animator was actually your first horror movie? Is that right?
It was one of the first, if not the first. I'm pretty sure it was. There was this gas station that was on, like, a few blocks away from where we lived, and my mom and I would go there, and they had, like, a little rotating rack, and there were 3 horror movies on it. It was Re-Animator, The Stuff, and Demon Knight.
Oh.
And so those were, like, the 3 horror movies that were in my rotation.
See, I also had a gas station where I would rent movies, because I lived out in the country, so it was 3 miles away. I could ride my bike there. I can't remember all of the movies in the rotation, but the one that was there were only a few. It was Bloodhook, which is one of the first movies that we reviewed or talked about on Horror Rewind.
I've never seen it.
It's a trauma movie, but it's not typical trauma.
It's not a trauma movie.
Right. So you'll have to check out Bloodhook. It is free to stream on YouTube, like the trauma channel. So I think it's one of those things where you love it so much because of nostalgia. It's not necessarily a good movie. I mean, it's called Bloodhook, so, you know.
Well, also I want to mention, for Re-Animator, there's multiple cuts of the movie.
Yes.
And the one that was on VHS was just the R-rated cut.
Yes.
So that's what I grew up with. And
Okay.
now on, like, Blu-ray and streaming and everything, you usually get the unrated cut.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't know what the real differences are, but I know that there were parts that my mom fast-forwarded through.
Oh, yeah, for sure. We're going to get to that.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Re-Animator came out in 1985.
I was born that year.
Oh, well, happy birthday. It's got a budget of $900,000. It made $2 million at the box office. And this is a cult classic. Critics love it, and retrospective critics and reviews. It's 95% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. It was based on H.P. Lovecraft's story, Herbert West, Re-Animator. That was perfect. And this introduced me and, the world, basically, to Jeffrey Combs, who I love. How do you feel about Jeffrey Combs?
I love Jeffrey Combs. I didn't realize that Jeffrey Combs was part of Re-Animator, because I didn't really know the facts about Re-Animator until much later. But I didn't realize it was that guy. So my real first introduction to him is from House on Haunted Hill.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The remake, yep.
Like, he's got all these little... I consider them almost like cameos in other horror movies. Like, well, he's in Frighteners, which was a really fun character.
I love that movie.
I love it, too. And then he was in... I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that he was in it, but that's crazy.
I know. And so I think it's funny that he's in that movie. I mean, that movie's not great, but Jeffrey Combs, like one of the heavy hitters of horror, makes a cameo.
Along with Jack Black.
Oh, well. Yes. We can't forget about Jack Black. The movie begins. Do you have anything to say about the beginning, first of all?
Not about the very beginning, no.
I want to talk about the credit sequence.
The music ripped off from Psycho.
Yes. Ripped off, inspired by, what's the real story here?
Well, in the commentary, they say ripped off.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't know if that's actually... It could be.
Yeah, it's very Psycho-esque. And I do love, though, the music is great. And the visuals, it's all of these animations and sort of like looking at the body and the workings of the body. And I think it sets up the movie perfectly.
Yeah, the crazy bright colors and all that.
Yeah. It's visually beautiful. This whole movie, like the music and the effects, this is the second movie that we're talking about that uses glow stick goo for the green stuff. And I just think it's a fun, beautiful movie.
Yeah. Is the credit sequence after the original opening?
Yes.
Or the initial? Yeah. That scene, when I was a kid, like, right away, I was pinned to the wall, terrified, and I loved it. And the whole movie scared me. I had nightmares. One of the most horrifying images that I can think of is from this movie, and it's because I was so scared as a kid, but we'll talk about that as it comes.
Oh, okay. Critics call the gore in this movie unapologetic. Blood and gore, and I agree. Like, it doesn't
That's very accurate.
shy away from showing things in order to protect the audience or leave things to the imagination. It's just out there. It shows us.
It is insane. The Dr. Hill in the head. Ugh.
Yeah. Now, speaking of blood, I read a little factoid about the movie. They used 24 gallons of fake blood for this movie, and the guy who did the special effects said normally on a film he would use no more than 2 gallons. Mm-hmm. And so you can get an idea of how much fake blood they used.
Yeah. I know that for me, I always kind of put this movie on the same level as like Evil Dead. And so I don't know why, but in my head I always compare them, and that is...
Yeah.
That's something they have in common. I don't know how much is in Evil Dead. I want to know.
I know. I bet it's just as much, if not more, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like all the fake fluids. It's not necessarily blood.
Ew.
Yeah, sorry. Now, I read something interesting, and maybe you know more about this if you listen to the commentary. This was originally conceived as a stage production, and then they decided, let's turn it into a TV show, and it was like 13 episodes, and then eventually it became a movie instead, because they wanted to, they said it probably get picked up as a movie before it would as a TV show.
I did not know that.
Okay. So yeah, that's a little interesting article I read about it, the process they went in order to make this movie. Speaking of the musical, though, it did become a musical in 2011.
Yes.
Have you seen clips of this or heard any songs or anything?
Little tiny slivers, but nothing. It's really hard to find stuff about it.
Yeah.
And believe me, I've looked into getting the rights, and we have found nothing so far.
Oh. I mean, there's a severed head that sings. I mean, what else could you want in a stage musical?
I know. Plus, we're the age now that it would be appropriate to play.
Right. Yes, exactly. It would be like within the... I'm thinking Evil Dead the musical. That's college students in quotation marks. But now it's like...
It started. And
now these are like medical students. So they're older. It would work. Do you know offhand... I didn't write it down. Who is the writer and director?
Stuart Gordan.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yes.
Stuart Gordan. So Stuart Gordan said when he was writing this script, the reason he came up with sort of the tone of the script in the movie, he was inspired by the dark humor of actual pathologists in morgues. That when he was researching, every single mortician or pathologist had like this morbid, dark sense of humor. Isn't that hilarious?
That's as per my squawk.
Yes. I mean, I can see that. And it seems like, and I've been noting this on Horror Rewind, anytime they show somebody working in a morgue, they usually are pretty aloof and like they are eating food like right over a dead body and stuff like that. But apparently people who work in morgues do have a dark sense of humor. I mean, maybe you have to work in that job. What do you think?
Probably. I can only imagine. Did you know, off on a tangent for a second, did you know that they made this movie to fund From Beyond and Dolls?
Oh, okay.
They're like kind of almost like a trilogy.
Oh.
But not via story, just
right.
That they were kind of made together.
That's interesting. Yeah, I saw those mentioned, but maybe I didn't put that together.
Yeah, it was one per year. Right.
Okay.
No, back to back.
You know, I mentioned earlier this is based on the H.P. Lovecraft story. Are you an H.P. Lovecraft fan?
I am very much. I've never gotten into like the role-playing games and that kind of thing, but I actually just finished the complete works of H.P. Lovecraft probably 2 weeks ago.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, and I'm a huge fan of like cosmic horror in general, so H.P. Lovecraft is majorly... Yes, I love it.
I too was into H.P. Lovecraft, and so, you know, I love that this movie is based on that story. And there's sequels. We'll get to that too, but
Bride of Re-Animator is from the original story too.
Okay, yes. So that's pretty awesome. And then also speaking of Jeffrey Combs and theater, he was in a one-man show about Edgar Allan Poe, and he performed it to sold-out crowds, and they had to keep extending it. They extended it, I think, 4 more weeks. This was in L.A. several years ago. And I feel like he's the perfect person to play Edgar Allan Poe.
Do you ever watch Masters of Horror?
I haven't.
Season 2, the Black Cat, he plays
Edgar Allan Poe. Oh, that's perfect. And I bet he's
incredible in it, yeah. And it's directed by Stuart Gordan.
Oh, well, then there you go. What else do we need? This, all of these scenes, the medical school and the bodies and dissection and all this stuff happening reminded me of a show that I want to recommend to you and to listeners if you haven't watched it yet. It's The Nick. It was on Showtime or Cinemax or something. It's available on Amazon. You have to buy it, so it's not free to stream. But it is so amazing. It's about the Knickerbocker Hospital, like in the early 1900s in New York City. And it was just around the time where they were trying to figure out like C-sections and blood transfusions and all of these things that weren't quite happening yet. So a lot of people were dying. But it's pretty horrific. But there's this character, like she loses her nose in some sort of accident or disease, and in order to give her a new nose, they fuse her arm, like her bicep, to her face, and it like grows new skin. And it's like, I've seen people cosplay as this. It's horrifying and disturbing, but it's amazing. So you need to check out this show.
I have to check it out. Yes.
Yeah. So The Nick, I would recommend that. It reminded me of that.
So is it K-N-I-C-K?
Yeah.
Okay. That's fantastic.
And it's also, I mean, there's plot lines about race and sexism and, it's a very deep show, but if you just like medical kind of interesting stuff, it's horrific and wonderful.
Yeah. I love the initial introduction of Dr. Hill.
Yes.
Teaching the class, and then there's the whole scene where he makes West angry and West like breaks the pencil, and that initial beginning of their rivalry is an incredible. I love that. I feel like this movie has iconic performances from Jeffrey Combs and everybody.
David Gale, and that's his name, right? David Gale?
Yeah.
I read and I can't remember the story, Herbert West Re-Animator, but I read that character description, he's supposed to be tall and he's supposed to be blonde and all these things, but they said when Jeffrey Combs came in the room and auditioned, they knew that it had to be him. And so, speaking of that scene with the rivalry and he breaks the pencil and everything, how iconic is that? And he's perfect.
I know. The look on his face, like, throughout the entire movie, he just becomes more and more unhinged, but he starts out crazy, kind of Jack Nicholson almost. I mean, because, at the beginning of the movie, he's already at the point where he's like...
He's already problematic.
Yes.
The cat is missing, which is so sad. It's like, oh, where's the cat? And then they literally find it in his fridge, and it's
poor Rufus.
Oh my god! And then they bring it back to life, and it's like mangled.
And then it dies, and then they bring it back to life again.
God.
Although I'll say it's the one pet death in a movie that didn't upset me because I was too busy laughing hysterically.
Yes.
Like. You're just, it's insane.
Yeah. And the next thing I wrote, the humor and gore is so well balanced that, like, things that are horrific, it still lands, but you can still laugh about it. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah, the whole scene with the bone saw and that like zombie guy comes out and the bone saw is like rolling around on the floor.
Yes.
Ah!
I was talking about Jeffrey Combs and how much I love him and I think he's perfect. But apparently, in the DVD commentary, he says he regrets some of his line readings because they get a laugh and he didn't want them to get a laugh. But I think we laugh because he's so earnest.
Combs. Yeah.
I mean, he's so... first of all, I mean, some of this stuff is funny, and his delivery is amazing. So I don't know.
I should mention... When I watch this movie, and I watched it this time too, I usually watch the integral cut, which takes, like, all the footage from the various versions and puts them all together. And so there's all these weird subplots. Like, Dr. Hill actually has, like, psychic powers, and he's trying to control Megan's dad.
Oh, yes.
To, like, get to her, but he like, hypnotizes people. It's really crazy. And so if I do mention any scenes that you're like, what?
Yeah.
That's probably why.
Oh, yeah. No, I read that, too, that there's these different plots and cuts. When they were talking about making this movie, they were saying there's too many vampire movies coming out at this point in pop culture, and that they wanted something more like Frankenstein. And then, they went with this story from H.P. Lovecraft and everything. Do you have a favorite vampire movie of this era or just of all time?
This era, so mid-80s. Well, my favorite one of all time actually is probably Nosferatu, the Klaus Kinski version, not the original.
Oh, okay.
Although, I mean, that's a classic. But as far as vampire movies, that is one of my favorites. And then What We Do in the Shadows.
I love it. I finally I showed Meg the movie like a couple months ago. So she finally saw it and it was like, what are you waiting for? This is amazing.
It's the perfect movie. It's wonderful.
Peter's my favorite.
Yes. Poor Peter.
Yeah, he has a tragic end, but oh my god, it's so funny.
I was, so mid-80s, 85, the same year that Friday the 13th 6 came out, I believe. So that was definitely kind of the height of the 80s. Like, 80s.
Yeah.
Like Return of the Living Dead and all these horror classics, and it fits right in very nicely.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite Frankenstein-esque movie besides this one?
Besides this.
And it's harder for me to... There's vampire movies, because it doesn't have to be Dracula, for example, but
right.
Frankenstein's monster is more specific. Or,
I really love the James Whale original.
Yeah, me too.
Universal, and then Bride of Frankenstein. I think both of them are amazing. And I also have a soft spot for the Kenneth Branagh bodice ripper version.
I do too.
He's the embodiment of a romance cover model.
Yeah.
In that movie, and it's hilarious. Like, everything about it is so melodramatic.
Yes.
I love it.
I've always loved Frankenstein's monster. Mm-hmm. And I've mentioned this on multiple episodes probably and multiple platforms, but ever since I was little, I rooted for like Frankenstein's monster. And I rooted for King Kong. And mm-hmm. I was drawn to these monsters and I guess that kind
Those
of
are
monster.
The tragic ones.
Not like, I'm not rooting for, serial killers, but
depends.
Yeah, I guess it depends on who it is. But I just love them so much. So
my other favorite Frankenstein-ish movie is Frankenweenie.
Oh.
The newer one. Have you seen it? Oh my god, it's so good.
I haven't seen it in a long time, so I need to give that a rewatch.
It's so good. Yes.
That reminds me of Frankenhooker, too. Like you were saying Franken, and I was like, oh, I remember that movie, Frankenhooker, too. There's a lot. I guess there are a lot of movies like that, but that one is not one of my favorites.
I've never seen it, but I know it's from the guy who did Basket Case.
Oh, okay.
Which says a lot.
What other notes do you have about the movie? Because at this point, I was like...
Me too.
Okay.
I will say that, so, once Dean Halsey is a zombie or becoming... When he first comes back and he's super crazy in the padded cell and they're looking through the window at him, that is the image I was talking about as a kid. I would have these constant nightmares about looking through, like, a window or something and seeing, like, this... hunched over crazy person, and then they look at me and like come running at me, and that image has always freaked me out. And he did it again in Dagon. Have you seen that movie?
No.
Oh my god, Kelly, it's so good.
So we'll talk about that one.
We will. He does kind of that same image where the guy's in a hotel room, he looks out the window and there's this person down on the street like being all creepy, and then he looks right up at him, and the next thing you know there's like a whole crowd of them trying to get in his hotel room, and it's so scary.
That is scary. Oh, speaking of that sequence and then going towards the end, I read that the padded cell they had built very cheaply, and he kept accidentally knocking down the walls. So then they said, you can't run into the walls anymore. But then a couple of the sequences, you can see the walls kind of shake.
I have never noticed that.
So I thought that was kind of endearing as well, because, I love it. It feels like theater in that sense.
That's one of the things that I really miss about the 1980s horror movies is they were very theatrical. Have you seen Terror Vision?
Maybe.
It's like watching this really bonkers play. It's so crazy. Like, they get a big giant satellite dish outside and this alien comes into their house through it, and like the parents are swingers, and it's amazing.
Yeah. I know so many horror movies, like, I feel like, these are theater actors, or this is a play, or could could become a play, because it translates well.
It's just insane.
The end sequence with the severed head and all this inappropriate business with Megan.
Oh, God.
And it's so uncomfortable. And then...
Poor Barbara Crampton.
I know. And apparently, David Gale got divorced after this movie was released. And I don't know if he said or somebody said it was because of that scene in the movie. I mean, I can't believe it, because, you would understand that someone is acting. But it's probably still uncomfortable to watch.
It is such a bizarre thing. And it's funny because this movie and Evil Dead both have some of the worst scenes like that. And they somehow still manage to be a lot of fun to watch.
They can get past it somehow, or we can.
It's so, I think, over the top crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I know. I agree, because obviously I love Evil Dead, and I don't love the tree rape scene, but I still love the movie.
I get really cringy at that scene, and this Re-Animator one too. And it is something I think about all the time. We should talk about the sequels.
Yes, let's do that.
Have you seen Bride of Re-Animator?
I haven't for a long time, but I want to rewatch it.
I really like it. It gets a lot of flack, but I mean, Dr. Hill gets bat wings put on his head and can fly around. It's awesome. It's all about like fusing. This one is about bringing people back to life. The next one's all about fusing them with different like animals or body parts or different things, and they're trying to put Megan's brain in the body of like a new. It's fun. I like that movie a lot. And then the third one, Beyond Re-Animator.
Yes.
Have you seen that one?
Yeah, but not for a long time.
I feel like I watched it recently, and I feel like it does not stand up.
Oh.
Definitely not to the other two, but it just feels like a cheap movie. There are some moments in it that are hilarious, like at the end when the mouse fights the reanimated penis.
Oh my God! Okay.
They have like a slap fight, and it's all done in like the shadow. You can just see their shadow.
Now, isn't there a movie too called Herbert West Re-Animator? Is that a sequel, or is that not?
I don't know. I've not.
Is it a remake? Is it a retelling? What is it?
It says it's in development and will be a quote remake of sorts of the original.
Okay.
I did not know that they were in any way connected. I always just assumed that it was like a completely different take on the same story.
Right.
Just because all of H.P. Lovecraft stuff is in the public domain. So.
Right.
Yeah.
What else do you want to say about Re-Animator?
I want to say that I really like it, and it has kept me scared for years.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that now when I watch it, I can appreciate the humorous parts of it.
Right.
That's pretty awesome. I like the sequel. It's pretty good. And just in general, I think Stuart Gordan does a really great job as a director. He also directed Castle Freak.
Yes,
which is
another one of my
the
favorites.
Scariest movies I can think. Like that
and that's
movie
also Jeffrey
still
Combs,
freaks
right?
me out real bad. Yes.
Yeah.
And he also did Dagon, which is another one of my favorite. Like, he makes movies that actually get under my skin and scare me.
Yeah.
So, and he does a lot of H.P. Lovecraft adaptations, too. I know in the first season of Masters of Horror, he did The Dreams in the Witch House, which is rather good as well. Okay. And Castle Freak is also based very, very, very loosely on H.P. Lovecraft, The Outsider.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember, I used to have it on VHS, and there was this video store that would sell their, like, perusal copies, like, illegally. And so I had, like, the one that would like, flash, like, you know, this is illegal if you've sold it to someone or whatever. It's like, yay, I'm watching the illegal copy. But, yeah, I think Castle Freak is available to stream. It's either on Shudder or Amazon. I've been looking at so many horror movies lately on streaming. I can't remember where, but yeah, check out Castle Freak.
Yes, it's a good movie. That one also has a really uncomfortable sexual assault scene. So thanks a lot, Stuart Gordan, for wrecking some perfectly good movies. So how would you rate this?
Well, okay, so let's figure out our scale. What should we use as our
Severed
scale.
heads.
Yeah. It's going to be...
in tin cans.
Yes, it has to be the severed head. 0 being you hated it, 10 being it's a perfect movie. I'm going to give it 9 out of 10. I think it's nearly perfect. I'm giving it a little less because of the uncomfortable scene that we mentioned. And you know, I think that's okay.
Fine, which we all do, but I agree. I would say 9 for about the same reason.
Okay.
I love the iconic performances. I love Barbara Crampton and everybody. And it's just an iconic movie.
If you have never seen Re-Animator, what are you doing with your life? Get out and see it. If you haven't rewatched it in a while, give it a watch. Yeah, it's going to hold up. You're going to be surprised.
I keep trying to get my husband to watch this, and he...
Has he ever seen it?
No, well... He says he has, but I think that's a lie. But he's always like, oh, no, it's so old. I can't watch old movies. And I swear, I'm like, you need to just sit down and watch it. But now he's never going to because I keep pushing him.
I know. It's like that thing now. It's like you brought it up too much, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Well, we hope that you're having a good week wherever you are, whatever you're up to. Oh, and you know what I need to mention? Today is the anniversary of the release of Re-Animator, October 18th, 1985.
I did not know that. This also is the anniversary of when I got blocked by William Shatner on Twitter.
Yay!
It's my favorite day.
So, until next week, we'll see you in the horror section.
Thank you.